Yay. Good morning. How's your morning been so far, Andy?
Very well. Very well. Good morning, everyone. I think we are now fully live. Okay.
Resume.
So, good morning. To kick us off today for tea at 10, I certainly have my mug and beans tea.
I have a nice glass of orange juice this morning.
There you go. Keep up on your vitamin C, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a great morning, a little cooler today, but the sun's still shining in my location. Hopefully it is in yours. And today we're bright and sunny topic, resume writing.
Yes. That's why I wore my lunch shirt, obviously. So
woohoo!
To reflect the exciting topic that we're discussing.
Yeah, I think resume writing is probably one of those topics that everyone absolutely dreads. There's no real reason to. It just feels like all your eggs are in that one basket, right? Mm-hmm. How do you pick and how do you make it represent all that you do? I guess how do you remember all that you do? Because I can't remember all that I do. Which is why we have our portfolios to track all of that stuff. So all of our student portfolios and those fields where you enter in your volunteer service and work experience and the good grades you get.
Mm-hmm.
That's all in there. And that's all going to come into play when you're writing that resume.
Yeah, for sure. So resumes evolve and they change over time depending on like which area of your career that you're in. So, I mean, you are in high school. So obviously, like if you were to look at like my resume or Andy's resume, try to compare the two, you'd be like, what? You'd be really confused. You might be like, well, I don't have any of that. And it's like, well, of course you don't have that. We're at least 10 years older than you. And we also went through college. So a high school resume is going to look a little bit different than a college student's resume. And a college student's resume is going to look different than someone who just entered into the field or who has been in it for a while. So that's something to keep in mind, that it's not just like it's a one-time thing that you get done. You have to constantly like evolve it and make sure it reflects your accomplishments.
So. Absolutely. I guess to sort of kick off this conversation in a little more depth, when I think of resumes, I try to think of what an employer is looking for on that resume. Or maybe it's not an employer you're giving your resume to, it's what is a college admissions counselor to look at in your resume. And the opportunities to give college admissions counselors your resume, probably pretty limited. You're not just sending them your resume. You are putting all of the things that are on your resume into your college application. So in that way, if you have the resume or that portfolio that you can draw that information of, that's just as good. So even though you're not sending your resume, you are still utilizing that information. And your resume is that ever-changing document, like Tina said, that sort of keeps it all together.
One quick logistical note. Can we switch to gallery view? I just noticed on the YouTube video.
Oh.
It's bouncing.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm monitoring comments for now, so.
Yeah, great feedback. So I think it's important to keep in mind what is your reader looking for? And Kristen, you're a writer, so isn't that kind of the rule of thumb? You always need to know your audience, and your writing has to be geared toward that audience.
Mm-hmm. So, I know this isn't necessarily, you may not do it as like intense as like I may do, like when I was, before I was hired for this position, when I was looking for different jobs, I would, make sure my resume was tailored to fit the job description, having specific keywords that would match, the keywords that were in the job description. And that's because when you are applying for jobs like that are not just like your local like retailer or local food service, sometimes they use software that like complete like it that searches for those keywords, and if they don't have those keywords, then they boot you out and you're not even considered for an interview. I know that's like a little bit more advanced, but what I do to be able to tailor that is that I have, it's not a resume that's like the one I send out, but I have one that's like an ongoing document where I just add everything that I do. And it may be multiple pages, and that way I can pick and choose like what's appropriate for when I have to send something out for like a job, or in college, like for an internship, that's what you would be doing, scholarships, things like that. So if you feel like you have like a lot of information and you don't want to tailor it down to like one page just yet, because you're like, I do a lot, but you just have to think about your audience. So if you have one like master document, what that has, like, I did all of these things, maybe it's like 2 pages, maybe it's 3 pages. And then when you actually go to send it, it could be that one page that's like really succinct. Also, you want to make sure your formatting's good, but we'll talk all about that soon. So
Yeah, we sure will. Yeah, and I think so. I mentioned the portfolios before, and for our students, we have started them with portfolio, and that can be that big long document. It's broken up into tabs and spreadsheets, so it should be easy to use. But we want you all to keep in mind that should be your living document. That anytime you do something, you need to think about going in there and updating that. You should also be thinking about updating your resume. But say, for example, if you were applying to a scholarship and they wanted you to submit a resume, I've been on several scholarship committees where we read scholarship applications, and it is very helpful when a student submits their resume, even if they are asked to, because it helps the reader to really get in a good idea of what that student is all about. So if you're applying for a scholarship, you might feel that your work experience is less important to that scholarship, and maybe your volunteer service is more important. So you're going to pull out the majority of those volunteer experiences, and you're going to really detailed list those out. And you might just mention your work experience as a way to show that you're a well-rounded individual. You can balance a lot of things, and you can do so at a high level, which is basically what a resume needs to be showing. It needs to be showing that you are involved in a lot of different things and that you're good at what you do.
Oh, I thought of another audience that students often forget about: the person they're asking for a recommendation. So whether that's a college application recommendation, a scholarship recommendation, a workforce recommendation, I often, I would ask professors like, oh, can I use you as a reference? And they're like, well, of course you can, but can you also provide me a copy of your resume? And that's because they see me in the classroom, and maybe they know me from like one activity, but they don't know the whole like outside of my life, and neither do your teachers. So it's important to show them like all that you do, so they can actually write you a really nice letter that shows off that you're a capable student who is well-rounded, who takes responsibility, has internal drive, blah blah blah. Those are all the things that like committees want to see, and teachers or who's going to write you a recommendation, they want to be able to say that, but they have to have the proof so they can reference it.
Right.
It's the supporting
Yeah,
details
as
of your letter.
yes, I was going to say, to add to that, Christina, it's the supporting details that are really important. And it's also, when you go to a professional and you ask them for a letter of recommendation, they know you pretty well, or they should, or otherwise you shouldn't be asking them for a letter of recommendation. Um, but they may be familiar with all of the things you're involved in, but having it in one document that you created and it's what you want shown, that helps them with those little details. Like, I may know that several of my students that are involved in National Honor Society and have done volunteering, but I may not remember, have notated in my own notes. I may not want to look through all of my notes from my interactions with those students to be able to find those when I'm writing the recommendation letter. So it helps me to have it very concise and in front of me when I'm doing that recommendation letter. I can just add some of those really concrete examples of what makes a student great.
And we all know that there's certain teachers that are always asked, like, more than other teachers, maybe, or maybe they're just like, a popular one because everyone really enjoys learning from them and they build good relationships with them. So if you're asking a teacher and they're writing a letter for like 8 other people, 8 other students, it's difficult to try to differentiate those concrete details, like Andy was saying, because otherwise, like, not everyone's going to take notes that you're involved in National Honor Society and you did this project with it and this project. So that's why you have to do it. You're asking your recommender for a service, so you provide them a supporting piece of evidence of your work ethic. So,
yep. So to summarize, we've been talking about why a resume is important, right? We're going to give it to recommenders for scholarships, jobs, potential colleges, recommenders that you're asking to write letters for you. So really, really important things are going to be very prominent in your life, and you need this, and you need to be familiar with the tips and tricks and why it's important. So should we get a little bit more into how you actually create a resume? We've talked about how you document. Something that's floated behind me. I gotta. We talked about the portfolio as a way to keep all of your important activities together. We talked about the resume as the place where you assemble those and how it changes, and you send it out to people. So how are we creating a resume, Christina? And we are going to, I guess I just want to say, a lot of your school districts are going to provide some really good information on the career or school counseling center's website. And hi, Lisa. Good morning. So your school counselors are going to have a lot of that on their webpage. And so please make sure you look for those. Today, we're going to be talking, some of the materials we're going to use are from the Warsaw High School Career Center. Ms. Ducat is a good friend and colleague of all of ours, and she does a great job with this. We have brought her in to talk to some of our advisement classes about resume writing before, other things research related, but I guess I'm going to turn it over to Christina and she can screen share some of these ways to put together a resume.
Perfect. Yeah, it was really great having her come and talk to the sophomores last year, and giving really great advice for like high school resumes. I feel like my background was a little bit more like college resumes, because when I was a writing tutor, that I sometimes I would even look at these. Mostly I looked at cover letters, but we're not talking about that today. So she showed us that on Warsaw High School's website. She's like, I don't care if you don't go to this school, use it. We have it there. We're all in the same community. We all want our students to be successful. So, you know, you went to the departments, you found the career center, you went to resume building. And she created this really nice page about resumes. So we talked about the purpose of it already. And also, you know, at below, this is the part that I think is really useful are the sample resumes. And you can use documents and change information. So I'm going to click on all of them because they all have different formats. And I have a certain preference for format, but that doesn't mean everyone does. So when I open this document, hold on. I was going to say, when I open this document, are you able to see it in my screen share? Or
we are still seeing the web page.
Okay. Well, you know, they updated it, so they're just trying to keep things safe.
Now
we're good. So this is the format.
Now we've got the.
It looks basic. I don't care. We're going to go over the parts and then I'll show you how they're formatted in different ways. And I'll tell you why I prefer this. So first you have your name at the top. You have your contact information. That's both the mailing address, so where you receive your mail, as well as your email address. You could use your school email, but honestly, it's better to use the personal professional email that we have you guys create because some schools block outside emails. And if you're applying for a job at the Charcoal Corral and they're emailing you and it bounces and they never hear back from you, they're going to go with the next person. Also put the best phone number to reach you at. And as a reminder, if you put down your phone number, please set up your voicemail box. So just a note. For education, so obviously you haven't graduated yet because you're in high school. You're going to write down the name of the high school that you go to, the location of where it is, and then are you expecting to get a Regents diploma, an advanced Regents diploma, an advanced Regents diploma with honors? Like, who knows? You'll know as time goes on because you and your counselor have discussed the track that you're on. And you write your expected graduation date. So it doesn't have to be like it's June 26, 2023. They don't have that information yet. You know that in New York State you graduate in June and you know which year that you're graduating in. So in general, even with other dates in your resume, I like to stick to month and year. So that's the education section. So they're showing for this student, this John A. Smith. So maybe that he doesn't have a job yet. Maybe he's applying for his first job. So as you see, he has a lot of volunteer experience at one place, and that's a good thing. So he has a section talking about the Nursing Rehabilitation Center. He puts the dates where he volunteered there. So maybe it was a long-term volunteer assignment that he was doing. And in the bullet points, it describes what are the activities did he do in his volunteer work. So you'll see it's not like full sentences. And this is like the one time you're allowed to like not write in full sentences when it comes to work things. But it still has proper grammar. So keep that in mind. And it always starts out with a verb. And I've got like a good guide for nice verbs that describe like what you're doing. So instead of saying like, oh, I did crafts with residents, we're like, okay, did, you know, whatever. That's sort of boring.
It is not a good action verb.
No, it's not. But organized crafts, we can see that you as a person have organizational skills just by putting the word organized. Or if you worked on like you developed or you aided, you provided, there's different verbs you want to keep in mind. And that's for all types of, that's not just volunteer experience, that's also when you go to write down professional experience. what are the activities that you do in your job, and how can you write them out in a way that shows off the actual responsibilities and your skill set. Um, so this section also has honors and awards. So if you're on honor roll, high honor roll, highest honor some schools have, write those down, keep track of it. If you ever got a perfect attendance award from school, from Upward Bound, write that down. For extracurricular activities, this is a great opportunity to put like the sports you're involved with, or any music opportunities, leadership opportunities. You can even write Upward Bound, because you're taking on additional responsibility to be in this program. So I know some of my students have said, well, I can't do anything outside of school because I'm watching my siblings all the time and I have nothing to put down. And I said, well, what did you do with Upward Bound? And they're like, oh, I can write that down. And I said, yes, of course you can. So
Yep.
that's just a little bit about extracurricular activities. So you put what the activity is, where you did it, how long did you do it? So did you do it for 2 years? Then you're going to put the month, year, and then the end date. If you're still doing it, put to present. And that's just general advice there. So this resume has computer skills, but you can also put other types of skills that you may have. So maybe you took a babysitting class and you got certified. Put that there, Maybe you got CPR certified. Definitely put that there too. So you can put skills that like you either got certified from, or maybe it's something that you learned that was like, through a class, a workshop, things like that. Coding. Anything you want to add before I go to the other?
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to add. I lived a life that was pretty secluded. I had a lot of work to do with my family, and I'm talking about when I was in high school. I didn't have some of the part-time jobs like you guys have. I didn't have maybe the opportunities to volunteer all the time because I was often working with my family. And during the summers, I worked for a chair restorer, and so that was it. And then I was going into education, and so that was my work experience, and it was pretty unrelated. So I had to find the ways that it did relate, or that were important to prospective colleges or scholarships or employers. And I wrote those things up in kind of a creative way. And I guess what I want to say is you can take some liberties with language you use. And that language is very, very important. Just like Christina was talking about your action verbs, those are important. So I was a crop farming associate because my family grew sweet corn and we sold it roadside. So, 5 hours of my day or more were often spent working on that sort of thing. So I might put that, I worked minimum 5 hours a day on my family's farm. I was an associate chair refinisher, furniture refinisher, for a small business. So you need to get out of, in your own thinking, you need to get out of, this is what I did and it was relatively meaningless, and you need to find the meaning behind it. And so, and what a potential employer is going to think of what you're putting on this resume. And maybe you can't do that in your own head. Maybe you ask someone else, or you ask us for guidance. But if you're holding a part-time job and you're working maybe 20, 30, 40 hours a week, those details are very important because it tells something about you. If you can hold a job over the summer that is 30 or 40 hours a week, you are already vetted as a responsible employee. You showed up, you did that work, and that's important to someone. As for like the community service that I felt like maybe I didn't have the time for, I still serve my community in some way. Maybe that was as simple as uh, going to church on the weekends. So for me as a teenager, that was my thing. I went to church and I helped out at every church function I could on Sundays because my family was already there. My family maybe didn't have the time to take me. I couldn't drive, so they didn't have that time to take me to special events, but I did seek out those opportunities, and I helped usher on Sundays and things like that. So uh, it might be a normal part of your life, but it's still service to your community and others. And so you can very certainly put that on your resume.
Oh, yeah, that's great advice. And I really like that you brought up the point about numbers as well. I think that's something that shows that you're detail oriented as well. So you get to show off that like, oh, I work, I have a significant amount of hours, but also it demonstrates that you're detail oriented because you can like recall that you work, a certain hours, or that you usher for 2 Sundays out of the month or what have you for a total of blah blah blah. I think that it's really important that if you can provide numbers for things that you've done, so maybe you like going back to volunteering for a second. So maybe you helped like do a fundraiser and you like help organize it. You can write out like what was raised, how much was raised. And people are going to like to see that. They like to see numbers because they like info and they like data. So, but it is good advice, definitely, that you can take the experiences that you're already doing in your home life and you can figure out how to make it work for your resume. And yes, just ask the adults in your life, like your advisors, and we can help work through it with you. This is sample number 2. A lot of my students really liked this one last year. And I was like, for high school, all right. After that, but it's fine. What I do like about this one is that it has an objective, which is just a statement that is saying what you're looking for. So this particular person is looking for an entry level position in the culinary field. And, that's probably just going to be like food service in their local area. But that's just showing them like this is their goal. They want to do this. Later on, depending on your career trajectory, you could say that you're seeking blah, 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 or you're looking to do blah, blah, blah in this field. So it still has the education section, but as you see, like this person's part of the BOCES program. So they talked about their BOCES experience. They highlighted their culinary skills and like what they learned either from personal experience or from BOCES experience. And then they added their work experience. So this student didn't have volunteer experience, but they had a good amount of work experience. And as you see, they like wrote out where it was, what's the name of their position, how long did they do it, and then what were some of those activities they had to do within that role. Same thing with, like this person looked like, so they worked at the Valley Inn, but they moved up in their position. So first they were a waitress and now they're a line cook. So that was showing experience at one level. They started with the most recent experience, and then they also put the not as recent experience below that. Same thing with this. If they, owner and independent pastry chef. I like that. Very cute. So maybe you have like a little side hobby business where you're like baking things for someone, or you're restoring furniture like Andy did. You can put that down as experience because you're entrepreneurial and you have great like business acumen, business skills. And then below, they talked about their interest because they already put skills up here. So they put interest for cuisine. So they made this resume very specific to the position, to the field that they want to go into, which is not a bad thing. The reason why I just didn't like it is because I don't like the center. I prefer like left to right. So It's just easier for my eyes. I don't know. What do you think of it?
I think this one is hard to read. Um,
Yeah.
I like when there is differentiation in alignment, and this one seems to be all centrally aligned. So I just personally find it hard to read. Um,
Hmm.
I'm going to add, the perfect example of, being a business owner, maybe even if you don't own a business. The example is that I put myself through college, um, hauling scrap metal, and I went to sales and auctions buying gold and silver and recycling it for money, and I made really good money doing so. So I put myself through college. That went on my resume as well. I was a metals recycling entrepreneur is what I called it. And I also put that was to pay for my college expenses. Um, so by doing that, I show that I have initiative and I have money sense, and I am responsible because I was paying that money to pay for my college expenses.
Hmm.
So just like Susie Sunshine with her independent chef um, position, she may have just made a couple cakes for some friends or family, and maybe they paid her a little bit of money, and she has. If you've been paid for it, you've been in that business, right?
Hmm. Like I said, I like the content of this. I think it shows off, a nice applicant who wants to work in culinary work and food industry. I just don't like the format of it because, like you said, Andy, I think it's just a little difficult to read just because of how it is. I'm going to show you another
Yeah. I Before you navigate away from there, Christina, um, I I want to bring back the sentiment that you need to know your audience. So you have worked. If you're Susie Sunshine and you have worked here at the Valley Inn, that's a pretty fancy restaurant. I don't know. I don't know that someone from the Ritz Carlton in maybe North Carolina, they don't know what the Valley Inn is like. So you might want to provide a description of the level of that restaurant. Maybe
Mhm.
one of the top luxurious dining facilities in Montgomery County. Okay, that's going to give them the idea that, oh, maybe this person does have a little bit of a skill set, experience in fine dining. Very different than if you were working at a small family diner, you know, washing dishes and making some eggs on a grill. Um, they're very different skill set. And so this person claims that they have accurate food costing and precise food preparation and artistic plate presentation. Um, it's hard to tell from the words on the resume what that actually means. And if you're going to do that, you want to also prepare some examples. This would be really out of the box, but I would have an attachment to your resume that showed like a portfolio of your work that showed just what your artistic plate preparation looked like.
I mean, you either
And
if they say like don't attach anything extra, you can also just have like a copy of the portfolio. So if you get interviewed, that's where you can bring that in. But having
yep,
that visual proof, yeah.
yep,
Let me show you.
absolutely. I guess my point is that you want to keep in mind if you were applying to a job at the Ritz Carlton, a really luxurious hotel, restaurant, caterer, um, they're going to have certain expectations, and you're going to be competing with folks that maybe have worked in very well-known businesses that already sort of vets them that they have that experience. Company is going to know what that other company does and is capable of. And if you worked there, they're going to know what you did.
Good point. Moving on to the third sample. This one is also centered, but it's not as bulky. So I think it's easier to read. I'm just not a center alignment person. If someone gives me a resume and it's center aligned, it doesn't mean I'm going to automatically be like, no, but I am going to be annoyed. And whenever someone is reading your resume, you don't want them to be annoyed. So you have to think about your audience once again. You may not know me, but you may know, like, in this field, what do typical resumes look like? And that includes style. Like for a graphic designer, this is going to look boring. They may have a much fancier looking one, but that's because that's their field. In education, you're going to have more of that like first sample. So anyway, so you still see that you have the person's name, their contact information. Instead of objective, they wrote their career goal. So maybe not just their current objective, but just like their long-standing goal objective for what they want to do. They put down their education. Oh, this is nice. They added college courses that they were taking. So we talk about, the dual enrolled courses that you take at GCC. You can write those things down. If you're in AP classes, you can write that down too. It shows that you like take initiative and challenge yourself.
Absolutely. Now, if you're using this resume for something where they also require that you submit a transcript, you might choose to highlight that you've taken the college courses here, or you might save that from your resume and allow your transcript to do the talking there. If your school's transcript is hard to read, maybe, or doesn't necessarily clearly designate that the classes you took were college classes, like let's say it's pre-calculus. Pre-calculus is a rigorous course and anyone knows that, but your high school transcript might not show exactly that it is the college level course. And if you were definitely in that college level course, you might take the opportunity on your resume to point that out to your readers.
Good point. Yeah, every school.
I love that.
Yeah, I was just going to say every school does their transcripts differently. And I know that some of my schools, I'm like, oh, wow, this is really, really small. It's very difficult to read. So I like that they were able to bring that type of experience out into theirs. They talked about their academic achievements. So once again, honor roll, they put some of their awards in like an academic group that was page turners. Maybe you're part of like math team. You can put down like if you placed in blah, 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 or Scholastic Bowl, you went to nationals in DC, blah, blah, blah. They put down their computer skills, and I like this, they provided a supporting example of Photoshop. Designing wedding announcements. That was cute.
It is.
Yeah. And then some extracurricular activities.
So
yeah, go on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think those examples are important in any of these categories that you have on your resume. Just saying that you're skilled in Adobe Photoshop, that's not good enough. Your reader really wants to know, okay, you tell me you're skilled, but I know as a professional that there are very differing levels of skilled in Adobe Photoshop. Maybe you've used it a couple times, or maybe you use it on a daily basis and you do maybe you're running a side business or something, designing engagement announcements or wedding announcements. Perfect. So now I know really where you're at. And if you're applying for something, for a job or something that wants tons of experience, maybe you need to be a little bit more vague. Because if you say, I've only done this twice, you're going to think, this person's they know a little bit of what they're doing, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more experience. So on your resume, it's your first, it's your first impression. So if you, sometimes that example is perfect, sometimes it can actually hurt you, because if you're looking for more experience, you want them to bring you in for an interview. And if they've seen on your resume that you only have 2 experiences with it and they're looking for more, you might not get an interview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once again, a know your audience type of thing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Just showing for extracurriculars, they mentioned that they are on the Warsaw cross country team. They're part of Girl Scouts. But then as you see, they provided concrete examples of what they earned, how many hours of community service did they have to do to earn that award, maybe some of the other activities that they did that demonstrates leadership. So they don't have to say I'm a leader. They can show just by these examples that they have leadership skills. For maybe you're a babysitter and you do a ton of babysitting. And then that's a great thing. It shows that you're responsible. So you can write down your babysitting childcare experience and like what you do with them. And then this particular person wrote down their interest at the end. So they did a variety of them. For me, when I look at this resume, I think this person is either applying for like a scholarship or applying to college. Maybe they're applying for an entry-level job too. But it's not like the culinary one where like this person is applying for a culinary position or applying to a culinary school. This one is more rounded, which is not a bad thing, because unless you like know exactly like what you exactly want to do, you might need to have that more rounded resume to start. So
Sure.
And good spacing. I'll show you the last one. Just getting that open.
Just a note while that's coming up, you notice that on every one of these, every line starts with that action verb. That is so critically important. We're talking about some of these general things like action verbs and example of what you did to support the role you had or the place you worked. So important on a resume.
This person has their contact information on the right side, but they have a lot of the looks and formats of the first resume that we looked at. But they do have an objective. And within this objective, it wasn't just their long-term goal, but what they want to do within their short-term goal. So you can tell that they want to do work in the medical field, but they're looking to clarify career goals. So this person is probably applying for maybe like a job shadow or an internship.
An internship?
Yeah. For education, they put down what school, expected degree, relevant coursework. So maybe, you're going to go into the medical field, or that's your plan right now. So they put down their relevant classes that they took. So that's a good way to show experience without actually having the professional experience, because you're doing all of the theoretical coursework. For GPA, maybe you have a really good GPA. I would say like if you have, in my eyes, like a 90 or above overall, then something you may want to highlight. Awards and honors, nothing too different here. Volunteer experience, they put where it is, the title of it, how long they did it, and then all their activities. And instead of writing extracurricular, they wrote co-curricular because they do it at their school. Either is fine. And for me, I would want to see like what are they doing in the Key Club, like for community service goals, like what are some of the activities that they did? If, on varsity soccer, do they hold a leadership position? If so, like, tell us. I do like this general left to right with the line format. I think it's just easy on the eyes.
Same,
Yeah,
same.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
The one thing I really like the use of bullets, and you know, I think the note with creating your resume is keep it consistent throughout the resume.
Hmm.
Don't alter your formats. So think about what kinds of things you want on your resume. We've talked about some of the subject matters that go on your resume. You know, that's your objective, your work experience, your education, your volunteer experience. So think first about what topics you're going to cover on your resume. And then, yes, that first example, use those bullets to provide the examples for each of those positions you've held or places you've worked. Um, and I wanted to touch on the volunteer experience uh, just a little bit. So volunteer experience, I know that many of you, maybe volunteer experience is an afterthought. If you're in Upward Bound, it should be the first thing you think about. It's something we always talk about from ninth grade on. But I know for many, and these are probably your peers, the volunteer experience is something that maybe gets talked about in your junior year, or when you're applying, you find out that you want to apply to National Honor Society. And all of a sudden, National Honor Society requires you to do 60 hours of community service. When you're showing that you have 60 hours of community service in your junior year, and then not again, no other mention of community service on your resume, someone's going to know that you did that because you had to, not
Hmm.
because you're necessarily. It shows some that you're a good person, but it's going to be pretty clear that you did that because you had to. Uh, and someone that has been doing it straight through from ninth grade on is going to look better than you. I think that's the simple fact. Now, some of you may not have the opportunity to be at a placement where you have an ongoing volunteer experience. And I know that was in the first example, that person did have ongoing experience, and that's awesome. And if you have that opportunity, you take it and you hold on to it, because that looks better and it allows you growth within that volunteer experience, as opposed to cleaning up a ride one Saturday and then raking leaves another Saturday and all these different odd little jobs. You want some consistency and growth.
Hmm.
So if you have to list all of those individual little experiences, great, but it can convolute your resume a little bit. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to build your resume, or
That's a really good
build the
point.
experience to put on your resume.
Hmm. And when you were talking about how like you ushered as a student, like that's long-term volunteer experience. You weren't getting paid to usher, and you were serving your community, your faith community. And I know that like when I was in high school, even if like I couldn't get to places, for the reasons for those like one-off long-term or even long-term opportunities, I mostly just did the things that my family did. So for me, it was also like in my faith community. So like I helped out with monthly pancake breakfast or with like
Yep.
twice a year bake sales. And it was fun because I got to meet people and I also got to eat some leftover food. So that was an additional perk. And I got really good volunteer hours out of that. But I didn't have to go anywhere special for it. It was just something that
Sure.
my family already did.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And as you grow, like maybe if you seek out those opportunities in ninth grade, by the time you're in 11th grade, you are more mature, you're more responsible. And if you've put in the time and those hours in ninth and 10th grade, by the time you're a junior, people that are, maybe organizing these opportunities for you, they see that what you're capable of, and they will start to give you those more, uh, those bigger roles, more the giving you more responsibilities. Maybe you start actually setting those things up, or maybe you help to recruit other volunteers, and maybe you organize the logistics of something happening. Those are really important things, because it shows your personal growth and learning to take the responsibility.
Definitely. I remember there's one thing we did not add or mention, or we didn't talk about it really. So we can add this really briefly. I know this should have been at the start, but your resume should be most recent in activities to least recent. So you're always going to put down the activities first that you're either presently in or that you did most recently, and then go backwards from there. I know it showed it in the samples, but we didn't
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah, we didn't actually verbalize that. I was thinking that as well. Thanks, Christina.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that you are most recent at the top for the whole resume, but per section. So your work experience is going to be your most recent first, your oldest last. Volunteer experience, most recent first, oldest last.
Right. Or like, so right now I'm in a master's program. So if I was, which I'm not, but if I was applying for other jobs, I'd put down my master's program first and then my bachelor's program underneath that, because it's most recent to least recent.
Yep.
So yeah. I don't know. I think it's good though. It's a good overview. Do, update your resumes, keep track of your activities. I think there's a lot of really good resources out there, and you have great people resources, whether they're from your schools or an Upward Bound, to help you with it. That's really all I have to say about it.
We hope so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These guys reach out to us. Sometimes resumes can be frightening. They don't need. We're here to help you always.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate you tuning in today. Hopefully, we've given you some really good information, and you can go forward writing resumes.
Yes. All right. Well, we hope to see you in advising the rest of this afternoon. If you're with us, that's Letchworth and Alexander. And tomorrow, join us for Fun Friday in our closed Zoom.
Yes, yes.
All right.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.